Okay, welcome back to our audience both in on-site and online. And thank you very much and congrats for making it to the last session of the day. It's been a day packed with very insightful presentations. And we have this one last panel. It's an interactive session. And we're going to explore institutional strategies and sustainability in student-blended mobility. This discussion will be moderated by Piet van Hoof, which is the Secretary General of the Heroes Alliance. And so I give the floor to Piet, and best of luck.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you here. I noticed the last moderator said since it's now after lunch, we will have a session with only presentations and it's not too interactive and I don't know what. And then now, because it's even later, now we will have a very interactive session. So if that's okay with you. So I just want to highlight what's specific about this session is that we will have a point of view of national agency, institutions, an alliance, and several institutions are part of an alliance actually. So we will talk about the strategic relevance, the meaning of blended, student-blended mobility in strategies and also how to think about sustainability. Sustainability in maybe different meanings. Sustainability in terms of how do we make sure that this has a continuing effect and how can this go on and what are the enabling conditions for that, but maybe also sustainability in the sense of environmental sustainability, I don't know. But first let me introduce the speakers in this session. To make it easy for you and me, we have two Evas. We have Eva and Eva. So I will start with Eva, who is from Finland, here on my right, yes. She works at the Project Management Office of Tampere, University of Applied Sciences, and is working on coordination and implementation of various kinds of internationally funded and maybe nationally funded projects, but in Erasmus+, Interreg, and other funding schemes. Also applied, I heard earlier, in the Alliance. The alliances are now unavoidable. They're everywhere. They've infected everything. I can't complain. I'm working full-time for an alliance, so it's fine. And then we have the second Eva is Eva Haug. And we're laughing because she won an important award a few years ago, the award for outstanding contribution of the EAIE, and I know because I gave it to her physically, and at that time I introduced her wrongly as coming from the Hague University of Applied Sciences, which is not her institution, it's Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. So Eva, nice to see you again. We've worked a lot in the past. Eva is together in the past. She's an expert on internationalization of the curriculum and specifically COIL virtual exchange. We did quite a lot of work together on that. And she works so as an advisor in that area for Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. And she's very active in the EAIE. She's published some very useful publications there called Pathways to Practice, which I recommend. They're practical guidelines for implementing, in this case, internationalization at home and virtual exchange. Then we have Runa is online, right? She is? Yes. Yeah? Runa, I can't see or hear you right now. Oh, now I see you. Okay, nice to see you again, Runa. Runa is joining us. I think you're physically in Iceland? Yes?
Yes, Reykjavik, Iceland.
Yeah. So Runa is the director of the Erasmus+ National Agency in Iceland. So yes, she has a long experience also working in internationalization of higher education at the University of Iceland, at the National Agency, and also at the European Commission. She also has a role at ACA. I think it's Administrative Council member, since the National Agency is an ACA member. And also active in the European Network for International Student Mobility, the ENIS network, which used to be the COST ENIS network, is now an independent network. I recommend. I'm also a member. So recommended for doing research on international student mobility. And then finally, we have Lars, who also works for an alliance, Civis Alliance. Are you okay? You're okay. He's based in Tübingen, at the university in Tübingen, and also has already many years of experience working on international student mobility. And at the Civis Alliance, he's also supporting implementation of BIPs and also some local institutional coordinating tasks, I guess, for the University of Tübingen for the Civis Alliance. So this is our panel for this session. Myself, I work for the Heroes Alliance now. Since 1 year, we are a new alliance that started this year. We have the best name for an alliance. No weird symbols or anything that you can't really type on a computer, but just very straightforward. Heroes Alliance. We are we call ourselves one of the applied alliances, so alliances consisting almost exclusively of universities of applied sciences, which is an interesting subgroup of the alliances. And I've previously also, I worked at the University of Antwerp for many years. My former colleague, Wannes, is here and presented earlier. So I've been working in internationalization for a very long time, since in the last millennium. And also been active in some international organizations such as ACA in the past. So, okay, I think we should start. So we are looking in this session at, from the points of view of these institutions, alliances, and also the national agency point of view at some questions around student blended mobility. And I like to take a step back. It did come up briefly in the previous session, but linking it to a strategic point of view and asking the why question. Why are we even talking about this as a concept? Student blended mobility. Of course, it's, in my experience working in internationalization, it's a relatively new concept. It serves a purpose. We'll find out what. But it fits, in my view, in the progression that we've seen, or if you look since the start of the Erasmus program in the 1980s. At the beginning, the focus was internationalization was a synonym of mobility, basically, and the results were measured in the number of mobilities. That's it. We had a second phase when we also started looking at the effect. Why are we doing that? And looking at learning outcomes, and also the effect on the institutions. And then I could call the third phase, the last 10, 20 years, we've also started looking more at the wider effect on society. What does that investment, that focus on internationalization, what does it do, what can it do for society at large? And how can you link internationalization to other agendas, such as environmental sustainability, inclusion, but also things like interdisciplinary learning, innovation in teaching and learning, and so on, and how do we include everyone in that? So I think that's when we ask about strategic, where does student blended mobility fit in a strategy? I would see it in that, against that background. But I would like to go first to Runa. Runa, how do you see that from the point of view of a national agency? What do you see as the relevance and the purpose of blended mobility in an overall internationalization strategy? So what needs can we meet with that specific concept of blended mobility?
Thanks a lot, Pete, for the introduction. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes.
And thanks also for having me involved in the panel. I'm very happy to be with you, even though it would be much nicer to be in Brussels, of course. I also would like to congratulate the project team on having finalized the HIBLend project. It's been a great pleasure watching it evolve and to be presented with such great results and outputs as we have seen today. So yes, I think I can say that I was and have been one of the many NA members that have advocated for more flexibility when we had the current program period on the drawing board still. Because I think, like, if we are really serious about our objective to make mobility a reality for all, then we also have to consider the actual reality of the students that are supposed to benefit from the program. And this, to me, entails that we acknowledge that our student population is growing in diversity and in numbers, and that means that the students have different needs and they have commitments that have to be regarded. And for me, it's crucial that Erasmus Plus acknowledges that not everybody wants to go abroad, and not everybody can go abroad for a full semester or 2 semesters. And I say this coming from Iceland and the Icelandic context. It's a bit exceptional, but I know that we have also diverse student bodies elsewhere. In Iceland, we have a very high average age of students. The average Icelandic student is 30.1 years old. And Icelandic students are also the ones that are most likely to have children when they are still in higher education. We have 1 out of 3 with a child when in higher education still. And this is by far the highest in Europe, followed by Finland, I think. So there's a Nordic tendency there to have a more mature student population, also more likely to have children. And for these students, actually, we don't know very much about them. We don't have much research focus, because research still tends to consider the typical higher education student as somebody who's carefree, unattached, young. So we don't know much about their experiences or their attitudes toward international student mobility. But I think it goes without saying that if you have a family, you are in a different situation. You have other responsibilities to consider than just your study commitments. And I think flexible mobility formats are crucial to address these needs. And this is why our national agency, the Icelandic National Agency, has been very happy with the way that the BIPs and blended mobility in general has been received in the current program period. I have to admit that it started a bit slowly. We had only a limited number of applications at the beginning, and there have definitely been some challenges that our institutions have met. But there have also been improvements, and I must applaud our institutions for making such good and positive steps towards, for instance, the management of the BIPs, because we have a joint management system that 6 out of our 7 higher education institutions are using. I know it's a small country, 7 institutions. And this has meant that now they are streamlining the application process of the BIPs and also the follow-up. And I'm also happy to report that we had a record number in 2025 for BIPs in Erasmus+. But we also see a pattern. We see that they're more inclined now to apply for a BIP every other year instead of annually, and I think that also reflects the high administrative load that is associated with organizing a BIP, as you know. But all in all, I am happy to say that we are seeing that institutions, their experiences, good and bad, good and challenging, they have not diminished their interest in the BIPs. And I think it's safe to say also that the BIPs and blended mobility is viewed as essential to academic growth in Iceland, very often intertwined with the European university networks that they're members of and that are shaping educational offerings here in Iceland.
Okay, thank you. So I hear you stressing the importance of blended mobility as a tool for inclusion, for serving the needs of diverse types of students. So I would like to ask Eva, what do you think about that? Can you relate to that as a goal, as a purpose?
Yeah, and in a way, yes. so our students are quite, in the Netherlands overall, in my university specifically, different. They are younger, they meet these typical criteria, but they do, most of them, if not all of them, work. And part-time jobs, but this is an important part of their daily life. Life in Amsterdam is expensive. So for them to leaving and finding housing is another issue. But once you have a house, you do not want to leave it. So these are realities, these are sort of commitments that they have that also make it difficult for them to leave for a longer period of time. The Netherlands, different from the reality that Runa described, is so small that we can internationalize by bike. We could potentially go to Germany and Belgium and France, by bike. So our students do travel a lot, but there's a big difference between, I think, traveling as a tourist and thinking that you know already what Europe entails and traveling professionally or for your studies. I do think to create a better sense of what European citizenship means within the context of global citizenship requires a deeper getting to know each other. And I think BIP or blended mobility could be a vehicle to do that, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Now, of course, and I know Runa was there too at the time when I was also in some conversations when the current cycle of Erasmus was being designed and negotiated. And what I actually advocated for recognizing virtual exchange as a standalone activity to be recognized and funded under Erasmus. That didn't really succeed, but it was combined then with another format that had existed before, the intensive programs. I don't know if some of you are old enough to remember the intensive programs in the prior Erasmus. When did that end? I don't even know, but a long time ago. So the short mobility used to be funded as a standalone activity without the B, just the intensive programs. And so the compromise was to attach the two to make short mobility more impactful by attaching the online part, if I may call it that, and then the virtual exchange was thought to be, more impactful if you attach a short physical mobility to it. So that's how the combination became the activity in Erasmus plus the current cycle, but just that as a short side note. But I want to go to Lars now from the perspective of an alliance. What do you see in the development of the alliance? What specific purpose can blended mobility play in relation to other types of internationalization? So how do you, within the alliance, think about the added value of the blended format?
Yeah, thank you. It is about the why, this first question. Why do we do all those things? And to be honest, after this day and also yesterday, riding a long ride with the train to Brussels, I had the chance to read the results of everything. And it was actually very helpful to have such many inputs. I know Civis is well known for the big numbers of BIPs that we do, the big number of students that attend, but it's very good to see that it's not only Civis, there's much more in alliances and in universities going on using the BIPs or other formats of blended learning. Indeed, it's good to think back again into why we're doing all that, because we all know, and we heard it often enough, it is a lot of work and it's a lot of capacity that need to be invested to do that. So I first rather did take the perspective of the alliance itself rather than now from the student side. Dagmar, you said in the beginning of the first panel, the why it's all about international learning, right? International learning and intercultural learning. And to be able to do that, you need an offer. And that's why we have our alliances here, or the university, the institutions. And the overall goal, I would say, of the alliances, but I can speak for Civis here, is to become a space of innovative and responsible teaching, for cultural exchange. And maybe the little bit special thing for Civis is, because of the name, it's already telling it, it's about citizen action in Europe. So that it's the main goal. And I'm convinced that the blended intensive programs can play one important role in that offer that alliances and universities can develop, and it is something we can only do together as alliance. We are not able as a single university to do that alone. And BIPs, I think, preferably when they provide a new perspective upon teaching and learning practices, when it is an added value in comparison to existing programs or courses, then it is a big asset for the alliances. I told earlier this morning already that CIVIS is working with calls, with project calls, where we set a clear framework for what we are expecting to see as a BIP. Yeah, it's not that we have a too narrow frameworks. Of course, there are a lot of opportunities to fill that, and there are different opportunities to work with innovative approaches. We heard about it earlier today, challenge-based learning, problem-solving learning, transdisciplinarity, but also transnational programs. And that it's all about. From the perspective of an alliance, I would say this is a broad framework for teaching and learning innovation. It allows for a diverse range of activities and formats, that it be service learning included, or work-based learning, field trips, project-based learning. So there is a big opportunity for teachers to work with. And what we experience, it's really, and we call it a safe space for trials and errors. So the BIPs are really something that allows academics to explore new types of transnational cooperations, of building trust and partnerships and teams, and thus becomes something like a catalyst for even more. And after these 3 long years, making my gray hairs with the BIPs, we see that now evolving indeed, that there are teams that started with a summer school, then developed it further on to a BIP, and they do today a joint program together, right? And from that perspective, I see BIPs as a very important and very useful and a powerful instrument to build that international learning of, or the teaching, yeah, the teaching, the response, the innovative teaching offer that is needed for our students. So, yeah, maybe I stop here.
Okay, yes, we will come back to some of those points later on, but maybe first I will go to Eva to respond to what Lars has just been saying about the strategic importance of blended mobility. Do you want to add something from your point of view? Yeah.
Thank you. I really like that you emphasize the learning, and I actually had written down pedagogical development as well, because I think it's like we are often talking about the institutional frameworks and how we are delivering the BIPs and how we are building the networks, but it's the whole starting point, like building the common ground for the pedagogical development between institutions. I also it's really nice to hear about alliances that have been working for several years. Ours just started in the beginning of this year, and we have been implementing just a few BIPs within the alliance so far. But the dream that we have is that we would have like structures for our partners that we could use, and we could like do the same, use the same model every time when we are implementing a BIP within the partners. And I really hope that it's possible. I'm not sure if I dare to ask that, but that's the dream, and that's what we are aiming for at the moment as well.
Yeah. Well, yes, thanks. What I also heard Lars say is that it's not only about international intercultural competence, it also fits with all those other goals of innovation, challenge-based, collaborative learning, I think could be a central concept. I mean, the reason I was joking earlier about the alliances, I'm not at all cynical about the alliances. I think it's a very important development. And actually the reason why I really, 1 year ago now, finally wanted to go work full-time for an alliance is that we've been talking for a long time about internationalization for all, for decades. And so now this is also the official ambition level of the alliances, is to bring innovation and internationalization to all. So I think that's a very valuable goal. And of course the question is if, and going back to that concept, I think if we combine all those types of innovation, the collaborative is the central point, really. Teamwork is important, interdisciplinary, but teamwork in general, international teamwork. And then whether or not you use mobility for that, to me, is a secondary thing to think about. When useful and possible, yes, in the framework of a BIP, but the collaborative part should be there, I think, regardless of physical mobility. But that's my personal view on that. So, and also what I heard in the previous session, maybe we'll come back to it, actually Wannes was asking that question, which I think is very valid. When we think about the physical mobility, we also always take the added value for granted. We think, yeah, there's physical mobility, so by magic, there's all these positive benefits, which is completely false. So I think we should also be very creative and critical and creative about how to build the value of the physical mobility part. It's not a given, just like the value of the online part is not a given. It all requires deliberation and investment of creativity and support. Anyway, so we talked a little bit about the why. Now we can go into how we do that, what kind of tools we use. And now I will go first straight back to Eva, because I know that your institution has coordinated quite a few BIPs and have developed, like you mentioned, some processes and ways to facilitate that. So from the institutional point of view, can you give maybe some examples of structures or choices that have enabled you over the past years to organize these programs effectively? And on the other hand, what are still obstacles that limit the uptake of blended mobility?
Thank you. First of all, I really like this question because I can be honest now. So the process at TAMK, at our university, has not been linear or clear in any way. So we started we had all kinds of problems at the time that we started delivering blended mobilities and BIPs especially. And actually I was the one that was thrown everything at, and all the like the administrative issues considering BIPs. So I can be honest that it was a mess in the beginning. So it was just something that the teachers or the people that were already interested in international cooperation were already doing and were interested in, and we wanted to enable that, but we didn't have structures for it, or we didn't have like templates or nice guidelines for it. So we really just learned by doing and learned by seeing what needs to be done and what kind of templates need to be done. And since then it's been really nice to discuss about these things and see that we've come up to the same kinds of solutions that others have been doing as well, and we can learn from each other from that point. But I think it's an ongoing process, but the main thing that we want to emphasize at TAMK is that we really need to put effort in delivering these things in a sense of human resources. We need actual people who inside our organization can contact, and they can actually take the issue and handle it, and everybody knows that it's that certain person and that certain place where you can find the information and where you can find everything that you need considering these. So we have now we have the guidelines. Now we have some shared experiments or structures. We are sharing the experiments within the staff members that have been delivering BIPs. I think we are quite open in that sense inside our organization and hopefully also outside our organization. Yeah, and I think because you were asking about the scaling, that I think we would need stronger guidelines also from the management level of TAMK to like put that on the strategic level, that we actually want to do those things and we want to put effort in delivering those.
Okay, thanks. Then I would like to go over to the other Eva. And you're coming, as I mentioned in the introductions, from a background of experience with COIL and virtual exchange and curriculum internationalization. So with that background in mind, what strategic and cultural conditions do you think need to be in place in order to for blended mobility and virtual exchange to become mainstreamed and to become a commonplace, let's say, in the institutions?
Yeah, thank you. So a couple of thoughts, and I'll try to connect them as well as I can. I think first and foremost that any type of internationalization of the curriculum activity should be connected to the curriculum. Very often we see that enthusiastic ambassadors, champion professors are the ones that take the lead, but as soon as these champions disappear or start to do other things, the initiative disappears. So I think first and foremost it's important to connect it to what it is aimed for, the curriculum. So therefore, we need to really look at our institutional strategies for internationalization and embed these activities, because they are activities to reach a higher goal. Internationalization isn't even the goal of the university. It is global citizenship, employability. You know, those are the goals that we want for our graduates. And internationalization is a means to do that. And COIL, virtual exchange, BIPs, they're all activities within the curriculum to reach those goals. So I think alignment, institutional alignment, but also very important program alignment. So students don't come in year one completely new to the topic. They have done things in secondary education, so do we use that? And then building on so if they do a BIP in year one, as we heard an example earlier, what happens in year 2, 3, and 4? You know, what happens in the years after that? How do we connect and build on that? Because otherwise we have a couple of great initiatives, but they're isolated incidents. And some students may be lucky to meet the professor that wants to do it, or to take the course that has this COIL project connected to it, or not. So I think the alignment and seeing it as a holistic approach to internationalization of the curriculum is very important. For that, so if we consider that it's curriculum intervention, we need to really hone down on the student learning outcomes, internationalizing the student learning outcomes and connecting the right activities. Again, COIL, BIPs, they're all activities. And then finding the right way to assess these things. Now, academics are experts in their fields and they know how to write curriculum. They don't necessarily know how to internationalize, and let alone do that in a collaborative way, do it online, all of these things that we're asking them to do. So capacity building, professional development is key. In our university, that has been key in the projects that Peter and I worked on. Capacity building was really the core. To think about collaborative pedagogies, problem-based pedagogies, and in my university, they're already there, but not in an internationalized fashion. So you need academics to learn how to do this and to learn how to manage the digital tools and the international collaboration necessary. So I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Eva. What I also picked up in what you were saying is, how to go from the individual champions, as you call them, to a more embedded approach. I think it also requires a commitment at the different levels in the institution, the highest level, but also the level of the program. You know, the curriculum, the ones who are responsible for the curriculum. You need to have some BIPs or coils scattered in that program ideally, and it shouldn't just be land on those people to carry that workload and that responsibility. It should be a shared responsibility, I think. But
it's very important to consider that internationalization is not the sole responsibility of one office. Even if you have a great structure, it is a shared responsibility. So there's many stakeholders involved, and some were mentioned. And I think educational developers are one. I'm an educational developer, but very few of my colleagues dare venture into the world of internationalizing their curriculum. So I think you need to really consider this. That's why I use the word holistic, this holistic approach, or an ecosystem if you want.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Thanks. So we will move now to a topic related but a little bit different angle, is how to overcome barriers. In trying to not only implement BIPs, because even if we implement BIPs very well, of course it will always be a limited tool. We will never be able to do BIPs for all students at the same time. So how do we take what we learned there and use it? Some people already use the term catalyst for broader change in the curriculum. But I will go first maybe to Runa and Lars with the same question for both of them. From their respective points of view, what mechanisms could help institutions collaborate more effectively and organize blended mobility in a more impactful and mutually supportive way? Because, of course, blended intensive programs, blended mobility is multilateral by design. And I don't know if it was stressed enough, but one important component of the internationalization that's going on there is also at the level of the teaching staff, is that the co-creation of these things. It's not always the case, but it should be an essential, it's seen as an essential part, I think, if you want to make sure that it's well embedded in the different curricula and that it plays indeed a valuable role there. But okay, let me, maybe I'm talking too much as a moderator, but I have the stage, so I use it. Anyway, yes, first Runa, that question.
Yeah, I think I got it. Well, I can very much agree with what Eva said about the holistic approach and how important it is. And we as an NA, we also focus on and highlight the need to embed blended mobility into internationalization strategies, both national and institutional, and in the programs themselves, in the degree programs. And here leadership plays a big role as well. As Eva also said earlier, we cannot have the success of blended mobility depending on a few committed individuals, because then what happens if they leave? So we need the whole institution or whole university alliance to be committed. What we have encouraged our institutions to do also is to explicitly link their BIPs with strategic priorities. We've been very happy with the way how the European University Alliances have been intertwined in the BIPs. Also highlighting interdisciplinarity, inclusion. We've seen some great BIPs focusing on climate action, on digital transformation, because we think this is the way to make them more impactful. So we have many lovely examples. I can name one BIP called Spark Social, which was developed by the University of Iceland in partnership with their partners in the Aurora Alliance, where we really have a BIP that was actively working on strengthening students' abilities to work with complex societal issues together. We also find it very important that there are internal incentives that ensure that academics have time, have recognition, and have support within their university to develop high-quality blended courses. And then we are also involved in discussions with our institutions on how to bring down the administration of BIPs. Because, well, Lars mentioned a few gray hairs that the BIPs have added. I cannot see them from here, but in order to minimize the need of more gray hairs, I think we really have to be strategic, and I think this is a good time also now to do that, to really think about, you know, what is essential, what needs to be there, how can we make blended mobility as smooth in terms of bureaucracy, not asking for something that is not needed. And just to mention two very concrete examples of what has been discussed in Iceland is the learning agreements. Like if we need the same requirements for the blended mobility as we do for the traditional, within brackets, mobility, we have, for instance, blended mobility that is integrated in the curriculum of the home institution, and still we ask the local students to fill out learning agreements. Is that needed? And what about if we have groups going on blended mobility? Is there some way to streamline that process and make it more simple, for instance, through group learning agreements? That is one idea that has come up, so that not every individual goes through the same administration, when it could be made as a group. And then as for the virtual components, we have also talked about the start and end dates of the virtual part that institutions now have to indicate several times. They do have to put it in the grant agreements. It's already many times in the course catalog. It's encoded in the beneficiary module, in the learning agreement. So, you know, that's just one example of like, does this bureaucracy need to be there? How can we cut it down? How can we make the Erasmus Plus administration run more smoothly, so that we really create an instrument that is user-friendly and good for our institutions? And this is the time, as I said, we have a new program period around the corner. So I really hope that we can have some improvements at that point.
Okay, Lars, you want to add to this?
Yeah, I just can only thank you for those words. Easing the process doing BIPs is definitely something we should work upon, and you mentioned some very concrete examples. That's good. The question, what mechanisms could help institutions, or I think when I look back to what we experienced in Civis, very essential is that we have a support structure installed within the Alliance. Without that, we would not have been able to manage that big number of programs and mobilities. Just a very short thing, and I like also that idea with the holistic approach. We have 4 different units within this Alliance: the mobility unit, education unit, communication unit, and digital campus unit. Even if we are convinced that this is still not enough, and there is some fields are lacking, when I look back to the last 3 years, I can see how good we work together in the meantime. At the beginning, of course, we had discussions like, oh no, this is mobility. Oh no, this is not mobility. That's an education topic. But BIPs are not just, you know, that mobility, sending students abroad for a semester, but it's about an educational project, an educational offer, and therefore we have to break down to work in the silos, and this is something what happened, I can see in Civis, and but yeah, that is I think a mechanism that helps doing that. At the same time, it was said very often already, we need definitely also an offer for our teachers, because when we started doing BIPs, we came from the situation that we did summer schools before. And of course, we had the situation that some teachers just wanted to have some funding for their summer schools. So we had to teach them that BIPS is about something else. And of course, as you can also see, I'm rather coming from the mobility officer side. We need the competence, and we also have that structure installed in Civis. We have an innovative pedagogy officer, and we had more than 60 workshops, of course not all about BIPS, but also about blended learning, about virtual learning. And without that, I think, again, we would not have reached the quality we already have. And of course, we talk about thematic hubs, bring the academics in, yeah? And they are involved in all universities, and they are involved in selection process, also in consulting, when it's about, when teachers start to develop their programs. So it is always linked to a framework, also thematically. To finish, maybe the last thing we did, we finished a circle last year, and then maybe also the circle to today's topic. We installed a evaluation of all BIPs taking place. Of course, we wanted to do that earlier, but it was a capacity topic. We didn't make it with that big numbers of things going on, but since last year we have for all BIPs from the 24-25 year a survey where program coordinators fill in a survey, where students fill in a survey, where we have focus groups and find out as much as possible and learnings. And maybe as an incentive for those academics that have a positive evaluation, they can now go into a fast-track application, so they don't have to do much paperwork if they repeat it. And this is also something we can see, that there is a big number of BIPs that already see their third or fourth edition. So in terms of sustainability, teams really have found together, are even growing. Maybe they started with 3 universities and academics, and now they are 4 or 5 or even more. And as I said, even more programs are developing. And this structure, the support structure, is now also something we try to apply to the new evolving micro programs, for example. We have now 4 micro programs in the Alliance, and again, we try to come up with a common calendar, with a common procedure to make that somehow handleable with that number. So in terms of sustainability, I would say a clear framework, a clear support structure, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think we see the added value of the alliance level there. I think we heard it earlier also from a colleague from Ghent talking about the Enlight Alliance. I think the alliance can play an important role both in putting the topic on the agenda of the partner institutions, but also pooling kind of resources for professional development and support. So I think that's interesting. Now going back to institutional commitment at the different levels, which is indeed important, but I hope the commitment would not be just words, but also come with resources to be able to do these kinds of activities even without the external Erasmus Plus funding, but that might be a question we could get to when we think about sustainability. But first, I would go with one more question to first Eva and then Eva. About, from your point of view, with your backgrounds, what do you see as the most persistent, either cultural or structural or resource-related barriers inside institutions that prevent blended mobility from really becoming mainstreamed and sustainable? What do you see as the important barriers? Can I go to you first, Eva?
Yeah, thanks. The first thing that comes to my mind is a very practical thing. So the hours, I don't know how it works in other institutions, but in our institution we are quite strict about hours and where we are using our hours. So we need to allocate some like real hours for that work and for the blended activities also, and to make it like visible that there is a lot of work to do within these, and like also make it so that it fits to everyone's calendar and to everyone's work planning, and also with teachers, but also with administrative staff, so that it doesn't feel like extra work for the admin work. Then about the cultural barriers, I would say that the overall point of view shouldn't be like mobilities or anything to do with intercultural communication shouldn't be something extra for the work, but it should be something that everybody needs to do and something that is part of the higher education institutions anyway. So it should be integrated in that way. And also I want to, it's been mentioned already many times, but I want to mention it again. So the cooperation between the blended activities and the curriculum development, so that they would be like a smooth part of the curriculum.
Okay. Eva?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for mentioning time, hours, because I was going to mention the same thing. So I think to start with, and I'm now zooming in on the people that or the stakeholders I think are at the core of this, which are the teachers. It could be academics, lecturers, however you identify them. But without academic buy-in, there is no curriculum internationalization, no SBM, no BIP, no COIL or virtual exchange, right? So we need to think, first of all, what's in it for them in a way. So I've been thinking about what are some of those obstacles? One, to identify what the added value is for the courses they teach. They're specialists in their subject matters, and they don't always consider, you know, maybe the graduate attributes or where the students will end up working. I mean, they think about it, but not in a global context, as it were. So they might need some help seeing that added value, because once they identify the added value for their students, because they will move heaven and earth for their students, right? So if we can explain that story a little bit better, then I think we're already nudging them towards saying yes. But then there's the time restriction. I think wrongly, universities have thought of virtual exchange specifically as free, without any cost. And this is how it was sold in the beginning, and I'm talking about 10 years ago, before the pandemic. And I think that was a very bad decision on account of the sort of the how we sold that modality, because it does take an effort. And you said, you know, we don't want them to feel like extra work, but it is extra work, because it's asking them to do something differently. And I'm not saying extras in more hours, sometimes that too, but also doing things differently. We're asking them to think about it in an online fashion, bringing in intercultural competence, all of these elements that are new, and anything new costs more time, costs more brain space. So I think recognizing that effort and supporting that effort is very important if we want to get them to move a little bit. So I work in a very large university in the context of the Netherlands, so we have about 45,000 students. So scalability is key. And for us, curriculum internationalization, COIL and BIPs and all of that are part of the strategy to make internationalization inclusive and accessible to all students. So we're talking 100%. So anything has to be scalable. So for that, we need a lot of academics, but you know, we can't always do it with the financing, external financing. So there needs to be internal financing or support. Let's see. That connects a little bit with, unfortunately, the changing priorities sometimes in our university boards and in our management teams. If you're lucky, internationalization is one of their priorities, but then AI pops up and you go down the list of priorities again, whereas this is a long-term strategy, right? It takes time to establish this, to build it up, and right now we're responding to things. So staying on that agenda and making sure that it remains a priority of the university to get that holistic or ecosystem approach is difficult. It's not always something we can influence, although we can whisper a little bit into their ears. I think in general, there's an underestimation or lack of awareness how important intercultural competence development is for students in general. It's seen as, and then I'm going to do it on purpose with the soft skills, almost as if it's a dirty word, and not seen as relevant as other competencies or skills, whereas the one thing AI cannot do is develop those intercultural competencies or soft skills. So I'm hoping that maybe the technological revolution will put forward once more how important humanity is and the human experience. And for that we need ICC, but I think recognizing that it is extra work, it's different work, but without that effort, we will never innovate. And our students are changing, right? The students that are coming in are learning in different ways. So doing it the old school way really won't work for very long. So yeah, I'm hoping, again, but we need a lot of green lights along the way. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for giving that very complete but short overview of how this all fits together. I think that's very useful. And of course also scalability related to cost. And I can also relate to the double messaging that on the one hand innovation is not about doing things on top, it's about doing things differently. But the innovation process does require additional inputs and resources, so that's also an important message. Okay. That brings us to a final round of what's written here in the script as quick reflections. So, well, what we want to do now as a final round is when we think back, we take a few steps back, we started off thinking about what is this all for in terms of learning outcomes, international, intercultural, but also linked to many other types of innovation, strengthening in the end the quality and the relevance and the purpose of our education. We're thinking through that lens about how to strengthen the quality of the virtual component, but also the physical component, I would say, of the blended format. So keeping all that in mind, if you could give an example of the one change at different levels, could be institutional or at system level, what would be one change that would really best support this whole process in the coming years of how to make the most of the added value of blended mobility, but also, the related concepts. We can start here on this side. No, I will start actually online with Runa.
Thanks so much. So yeah, Piet, you mentioned the virtual part, and I think this is something that we are also concerned about, the fact that the virtual part seems to be neglected in many ways. This is also what the HIBLend report has shown us. What we've done as the DNA is to circulate the recent guidelines and from the Commission, and what I really think is a good thing about that one is that we do have practical examples, concrete examples, and good practices. So I think the one thing would be to continue to learn from each other. That's really what we encourage our institutions to do, and we try to create a platform for them to do just that. And I think the HIBLend framework itself is also very likely to boost sustainability and success and inclusion, and we greatly welcome that. Because for us, we promote blended mobility as a tool for inclusion. I know that I don't have much time, but I still wanted to mention that I'm doing a PhD at the moment where I'm looking into parenting students in the Nordic countries and what impact it has on them to have a child for their participation in Erasmus+. So I've had the privilege to go around and interview these students and get insights into their lived experiences. And it's just so valuable. And I have noticed that those that take part in a bid, for them, they would not, the ones that I've been speaking to, they would not have been on traditional mobility at all. So for them, the blended mobility, the BIP, was their opportunity to experience what it is to be on a campus abroad, to work together, to collaborate with peers in different countries from diverse backgrounds. And as we know, that is where innovation happens. And I think it's really important that we remember what kind of revolution it is in the Erasmus Plus program, that they do have that opportunity. And we must safeguard it. And these students, they deserve quality both in virtual and physical part.
Okay, thanks for that. And then I'll move here along the table with first Eva.
Thank you. I would like to raise maybe two things in the end. First is evidence-based approach, so more research on the blended learning activities and the benefits of blended learning, and then like implementing those researches inside the organization and making it well known inside the organization. And the second part would be like sustainable funding basis inside the institution, so not only based on the projects or BIPs or Erasmus funding, but creating a clear plan inside the organizations.
Yeah, thanks for that. So evidence-based and sustainable funding. I think very valuable things to take with us. Yes. Lars?
Yeah, the sustainability indeed would also have been my point. Looking beyond project thinking or project timelines, especially when it comes to the Alliance. We all know that there will next year be a new situation for some alliances. We have to apply for the 2 years on top, and nobody really knows what is going to be. But yeah, as we all mentioned, additional products need or make additional work, and it needs to be done by someone. Of course, we can all be more effective and efficient, but in the end, it stays that it needs to be done. So sustainability in terms of funding would be one thing, but I also would like to end with a positive thing. You just mentioned, Rona, the students and the impressions you get and the talks you had. I also have some impressions. I had the chance to proofread all projects that were prepared for the website. So I saw really so interesting blended intensive programs being offered to the students. It was mentioned today by someone that you feel like you would like to be a student again and to attend those programs. So there's really a rich offer, and I'm sure it's not only in the Civils Alliance, but also with all those other alliances and universities, and the wonderful offer for students. I know some students now working as ambassadors in Civis, and they all were starting with a BIP. And are completely convinced today about the whole idea of the European University Alliances. So I'm sure if you ask and go into the details, you'll have a lot of positive outcomes. And it would make sense to make that visible, to do the research and bring it, make it visible. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Lars and Eva.
Yes, thank you. So if you allow me a critical note, I mean, now that I have your attention, because a lot was spoken about the online part and how that could be improved. And I just wanted to remind everybody that COIL Virtual Exchange has been around for more than 10 years. There's a pool of knowledge that we are not tapping into. I represent that community, so do reach out, because we would love to help. Very often it's seen as two different worlds or competing worlds, competing interests. That is not the case at all. So we're not taking advantage of the capacity building and the knowledge that's already been established. And then there's specific training that may be needed for the in-person part. But again, we have a lot of knowledge with summer schools, so we're we're almost treating this as if it's a completely new thing, but it's two ideas that are coming together. So the best of both worlds. The reason I also want to mention this other pool, I strongly believe in the importance of Europe and connecting students within Europe. I also think the world is much larger than Europe. And one of the sort of restrictions maybe of this student blended mobility is that it is limited often to Europe. And I work a lot with South Africa and South America. And because they don't have the advantage that we have with Erasmus, there are so many fantastic practices with especially online collaboration, interdisciplinary collaboration, intercultural collaboration, and especially collaboration, connecting, and somebody in the panel said that earlier today as well, connecting local problems with global solutions, so reaching out to communities. So I think if we try to venture a little bit outside of the EU and the restrictions of BIP or student blended mobility, there's a world of knowledge that we can tap into and really enrich the experience for many. So I hope it wasn't too negative, but you can end with something positive, Pete. You're good at that.
Okay, I'll change it then.
Good.
No, thanks a lot. I think this last panel, and I hope the audience will agree, has added some additional perspectives to what was said in the earlier part of the day. But I would like to give the opportunity for some questions here in the room or online. But if I'm not mistaken, I don't see any questions online for the moment, right? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Just wait for the microphone 1 second.
Yeah, thank you for the discussion. And actually, while listening to you, I came with idea maybe also about like a systemic approach to solve some barriers. And I would like to know if anyone already thought about it or implemented any of these, or what do you think about it? So the first one would be like mobility window for short blended mobility, or BIP. So for example, in the network of universities that create together the BIPs, to have a set of, I don't know, let's say in June we do all the BIPs, so it's like, you know, commonly, like also for the administrative staff, like they can all together know that this is the busy period of time when they'll have to work on the implementation of this. And also to create kind of a space in the curriculum for such activities. And the other one would be institutional awards for the best BIPs or short band mobilities.
Mm-hmm. No, good ideas, I think. Mobility windows and such are very important topics in the alliances for sure, to create these embedded mobility opportunities or internationalization opportunities. I think we can only say yes. Probably don't have the time to really go into detail, but it's the right line of thinking, I think. And awards, yes. I mean, anything that can bring attention and that can spread enthusiasm is a useful tool, I would say. So thanks. Anyone wants to add something very briefly to that?
Within our Eureka Alliance, we do hand out awards, now that you mention it. Not necessarily for the blended, so different things, more sustainable. Sustainability is a big topic, sustainable cities. But yeah, we do that. But I think maybe recognizing a BIP could be interesting in that context. Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe regarding the calendar, we do not have a mobility window for short-term mobility for BIPs, but we discussed 3 years about a common calendar to do the BIPs, and that is something we reached. So we have one project call and 2 student calls, very much related to the semester structures, but you know, between Sweden and Rome, there are different calendars, and so that was already difficult to reach. But yeah, not really as a mobility window. And question of embedding BIPs, it's very different from university to university. So there are some, but it's not done everywhere. But it's on the table, and we discuss more about that too.
Actually, there's a question in the chat that's a little bit related to that. I'll read the question. Do you have experience with scaling up BIPs, i.e. sending, receiving whole classes? Recommendations regarding the organization, is there funding enough? So I think that refers to a situation where you have an entire group of students taking a specific course, all together participating in some BIP or BIP-like experience.
Yeah, we do, but because it's part of the curriculum. So a student group takes part of a certain course, they all go, but that I'm not, because I'm the educational advisor, so I don't know anything about how difficult. Our international office struggles with that, yeah.
But of course there is experience with, well, sometimes it's viewed negatively, but study trips as part of the curriculum. There's mixed experience with that, I think. But if done well, it could be a good tool, especially if there's also, maybe we're a bit away from the typical BIP model there, but if there is a group of students traveling to another country, after having already worked together with a group of students in that country on challenge-based learning, online collaboration, and then visiting that place and having an experience. We have actually in the past had some good experience with that kind of model. But again, it requires being very intentional about every aspect of it and really keeping an eye always on the learning outcomes first. Yep. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Bert.
Hi, good evening. Bert Willems, KU Leuven. I want to ask a question, focus a bit on the institutional impact of what you're doing. And basically, I was wondering, how are your alliances, so specifically to Lars and Eva, how are your alliances achieving institutional change, systemic impact, which is the goal of the alliances, by developing and working on BIPs beyond the alliances? So do you see an impact in your institutions themselves outside of the alliance context?
Difficult question, yeah.
You take it.
Well, I can speak mainly for Tübingen, right? As I'm based in Tübingen. Can I speak for that? Well, it's difficult to give a clear answer. I mean, it is sort of, as we had, there is a circle of people very much engaged in the alliance, but still we have the situation that from the percentage, it's much too small, that we can say, you know, most of Tübingen staff students are aware that they are civis. Mm-hmm. I would say there are small signs maybe where you can see it maybe, but yeah, no, I think it's too early to give a really good answer to that before I talk long and say nothing. But yeah, it's a big topic, and I think especially when it comes to you know, making that mind shift from project-based thinking to alliance-based thinking, it's a rather small number of people, you know, having really that focus. So it's now coming a bit more on the discussion because we have to think about what comes next, right? And we have to come up with a strategy for the next 10 years, not only for the next 2 years. So yeah, it is on. It is. You can feel it that it's there, but I would say it's still difficult to really grab it somewhere. I don't know. If you have a different...
Well, and you could even ask the same question at a different level. The assumption is also that what's going on in the alliances will, as experimentation, will have a broader effect on the whole sector. Is there a mechanism for that? Is that the case? I don't know. I don't think at 4:37 in the afternoon we'll be able to start answering that question. But it's an important question if you think, you know, what the logic is behind the alliances. But the same question what you're asking, if you take away the alliance, will what's been done now have had a lasting effect on the institutions? Maybe too early to tell. Yeah. Okay, I think we've reached the end of the questions and almost the end of our time. So in terms of wrapping up, I won't take any longer, just read out a few of the terms that I circled in my notes. Continue to learn. I think Runa said that the HIBLend project will have a lasting effect. That's good news, I think, on this day. Evidence-based, sustainable funding, use experience from others elsewhere, gained elsewhere, like the long experience with COIL and virtual exchange. Shared responsibility for innovation, scalability, commitment and support, mindful of cost are important elements. Mainstreaming these benefits, how do we do that? Once we know what the added value is, how do we mainstream that and bring it to the largest possible group? And I would say inclusion was mentioned. And personally, and now I will end on a little bit critical note, inclusion is about lifting obstacles and making sure that everyone who wants to participate can participate. That's one definition of inclusion. But to me, what's even more important is reaching those who are not even interested. That's the group that we really should be reaching for. And that's the next level inclusion, I would say. But maybe food for another project, Irina. Okay, so that's, I think, the end of this session and on the end of the day, but I don't know, Irina, you?
Thank you so much, Pete. For the closing remarks, let me just confess I'm quite an avid note taker. And I have about 8 pages here of notes and takeaways from today's discussion. My colleague Angeliki looked at me at some point with some concern, I think fearing that I will really want to share all of this with you in the closing remarks, which I won't, so rest assured. But that is really a testament, I think, Pete, of the many insights I think we all gathered today and much food for thought for definitely for follow-up projects. And I continue to be sort of impressed, at the end of an event such as this, that is in a way an opportunity to wrap up some consistent body of work, in our case of 3 years working with our partners on this project. And seeing how such a moment is not at all a wrap-up, but rather the start of possibly many follow-up activities. So we remain very committed to that. We seem to be aligned in our thinking in terms of key words for the takeaways. So I've sort of structured a few points I wanted to share with you. I think a lot of the insights that were shared here today revolve, for me at least, around 2 sets of key concepts. One is striking a balance, or maybe a better balance, and the other set of concepts relates to integration, or the functional equivalence of that. I think it was called embeddedness or alignment, especially in the final panel. And when it comes to the striking a balance, I think several calls were made for striking a better balance, perhaps in the planning of the online and the on-site component, how they should be really thought in an integrated way. Obviously, we received quite some input on how to particularly strengthen the online component, but at the same time, some critical remarks also for the physical part, and I think a call from Eva amongst other colleagues, Eva Haug, to clarify here in the panel about how to potentially also expand the concept and current practices looking beyond Europe and beyond our current collaborations. This balance, I think, was also emphasized to quite some extent into how much we want to structure or should structure, and how much room we should leave in these approaches for innovation, or I think for what someone called in the morning, Roberto, one of our speakers, unexpectedness. And I do take, I think, that one of the greatest positive elements, I think, often underlined in connection to student blended mobilities relates to the flexibility of these arrangements, which really nurture different institutional practices. Now, when it comes to integration, alignment, embeddedness, there's much to say. We talked about the curricular embeddedness, the strategic embeddedness. We talked about the purposes, so reconnecting with the reasons why we're doing this, but also how student-blended mobilities really fit in the wider ecosystem of mobility activities at the institutional level and connecting those to the purpose, so what we're really trying to achieve. For me, it relates very much to SBM being very much a team effort, and I think that was emphasized also through various contributions today. Balance there to be struck again. I think it was very clear in Thibaut's final question on how to provide enough guidance and at the same time not stifle innovation and not be overburdening perhaps for initial approaches. All in all, I think Dagmar said it in the morning in his moderation. There were as many ideas as raindrops here in rainy Brussels. So I want to thank you for that. You've definitely left us with much food for thought for the follow-up. And luckily, there are already, as colleagues have mentioned in the morning, some structured ways to continue the conversation in the framework of the HIBLend project through this community of practice where you were all invited, if not there already, as well as to repopulating the heat map. A call for case studies was done in the morning, and as well as for the live webinars that will follow next year. And in closing, I want to say that I also took it in the morning from Fanny that it seems to be a good moment in time to engage in a deeper conversation about the lessons learned, especially in the context of BIPs. You've heard, Fanny, that the Commission starts to think about the details of the BIPs future in the next program. So it seems it's a good moment for all of us to join forces and feed into that development as well. All right, these were the reflections. I'm done. Let me very briefly say at the end or express a big round of thanks to many people that made this event and also project possible. And I do want to start with all of you that joined us for the event here on site and online and that managed to stay until the end. I said it in the morning as well, but I want to emphasize we know it's a particularly busy time of the year, so we're really grateful for your presence, but also very much for your input. A big thank you to the panelists. I think obviously the event would not have been possible without all of you, and thank you for giving us so many ideas for continuation. Obviously, a big thank you to our project partners. It's nice to be at the end of a project such as this and look back with many fond memories about the intellectual sort of exchanges, but also the human side and social side of things. So at EUF, Salome and Deborah, thank you so much. NVAO, Dagmar and Mark, who's not here with us today, Violetta, Masaryk, and also TAMK, Eva and Henry also, who is not joined us. A big thanks to our advisors. You've seen many of them in the program. So thank you very much for your support. And last, but really not least, at least from my side, a big thank you to the ACA team. And first of all, to Angeliki. You've heard her name mentioned many times today, and that's for a very good reason. She's been the project manager of HIBLend and with a very sizable contribution. So thank you for that. But I also want to recognize Veronica, who's there in the back and who's been really the conceptual oversight of the project, joining at some key moments. For the event today, Caroline, who is sitting in the back and made sure all of us here on site and online can connect smoothly and have good food and nice interactions also during the breaks, as well as to Nina, who has supported with all the visual developments, and also photographer for the day, and Lorenzo, our colleagues that helped with all the smooth transitions. So thank you so much. Yeah, we hope to see you soon somewhere else, obviously, and stay connected. Thank you.